Hey, what's going on, loungers? Welcome back to the channel. So this video is going to be a little bit more impromptu, okay? So I do plan to pump out a lot more content as well as to start upgrading the videos over to 4K. Now, the thing is that if you didn't already know, I was recently invited to the Profit First Reseller podcast here. And basically, I do a lot of talking about what my villain origin stories are, as well as what the original secret sauce of how I made my first successful year on eBay. So I give a lot of true technical information away. So if you have a chance, check it out on his channel. Now, the video itself, I gotta warn you, is an hour and 45 minutes long, but there is pretty much no fluff whatsoever. Everything about my daily routines, like what I do, like all sorts of stuff is in here, as well as later on towards the end of the video, Joe would ask me about how would I expand his business like another 20%. And because we're good friends, I decided to, you know what, I'm going to give him a live consultation on the spot, and plus, a little bit of a business flex. And what I did for him is that I truly believe that the information that I gave him of picking apart his business, where the bottlenecks are, and exactly what would increase his business tenfold, I reveal that all in this particular podcast. So, I always wanted to point something out, right? Normally, I don't highlight the trolls, but I just want to point out this guy. This guy, his name is Benny Stratton. You've probably seen Benny Stratton around, right? He's in all of the reseller videos, and he's always in the comments leaving like huge novel replies. Like this is just all of Benny Stratton's reply, like right here, okay? And in it, he kind of accuses me of being a follower of Robert Kiyosaki, which is hysterical because I've never claimed to be a big fan of Robert Kiyosaki, even though most of us has all read Rich Dad Poor Dad because we were recommended it by someone. And Rich Dad Poor Dad was a very easy read. And I would still actually recommend it to other people if they are first getting into the entrepreneurial mindset because, mindset is still very important. You need the mindset in order for the why, but then you also need the how of how to do business, right? So very often when we talk about, the way that business is supposed to work, the why gives you the motivation. Why should I do this? Why should I get into it? But then once you're down, once you've been talked into it, you're like, okay, this makes sense. I need the how. I need the how to make this happen. And this is why I'm obsessed with the how. This is why I'm not a big fan of Kiyosaki, because once you learn a little bit of the how, whatever, you're like, okay, fine, we're going this direction. We're going to do the business stuff. Now I need it to be 90% how to do this. So when people say like very vague things, like we're going to build systems by leveraging AI, like we still have to push them even harder and get granular. What do you mean by that? I'm going to keep asking you how until I finally understand how to replicate what it is that you're talking about. Otherwise, it doesn't count, right? So basically, I wanted to do this video specifically on Robert Kiyosaki, right? So let's talk about this for a little bit. If you do a YouTube search, okay, for Rich Dad Poor Dad documentary, there's all sorts of stuff that starts to out him as a fraud. Now, I want to be fair first, right? Every famous person, doesn't matter who it is, Barbara Corcoran, Grant Cardone, anybody from the Shark Tank stuff, like you're going to have haters, right? You're going to have people who are against like what they're doing. That's not this. This is people exposing him for the fraud that he actually is. So this is very, very different, okay? And there has been a lot of video evidence on this stuff. So I knew this a long time ago. And the best one up to date so far is this one called Rich Dad Got Caught. It's by Jeremy Orozco, and he only has 26,000 subscribers, but this video has about 2.3 million views. And even then, I don't think it has enough views. So we're kind of going to watch this particular one together. And let me zoom in a little bit on this one with you guys, right? So that we could really get into the nitty gritty of this. So essentially, the gist of the story is this, okay? There is no Rich Dad, Poor Dad. The whole thing is fiction, okay? And Robert Kiyosaki is not even really a business guru. Not until later on, where he just played the part for so long that he just had to, keep going with it. So basically, he's a fake it till you make it kind of story. So originally, right, it's a lady named Sharon Lecter who is the actual brains of the whole thing. So if you're going to follow anybody, you're going to follow Sharon Lecter. You're not going to follow Kiyosaki. Kiyosaki is just the face of it all because they wanted to write a business book that was very digestible, very relatable, very easy to read. And they needed to wrap a story around it because most business books and, channels and whatever is very boring. So they whipped up this story that's very warm and relatable about rich dad and poor dad in order to, show the contrast that's basically in the title itself. And then they needed a face, right? So let me show you more about exactly what this is going on, and then we'll watch this part together.
Why'd you really write this book?
The fact of the matter was I created this board game called Cash Flow.
Yeah.
And I couldn't sell the board game. So I had to write a brochure. And the brochure I wrote was Rich Dad, Poor Dad. So the real fact of the matter is Cash Flow is about accounting. Rich Dad, Poor Dad is a book on accounting.
And if you ask him, it's just him alone in the desert, bored, writing a book on accounting.
And I just wrote because I had nothing else to do. Otherwise, I'd watch TV.
Sharon, how did you write Rich Dad, Poor Dad?
When I wrote it, I was determined to write it where we would take the complex subject of money and make it easy to understand. So that was the goal.
The real brains
I wrote
of
as
the
I
operation.
speak so that people didn't get turned off by grammar or that type of thing. And it was actually written as a brochure to promote the game behind you.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yes. I met Robert at a beta test of the game, and I had already built a global brand of talking children's books. And during that process, he told me he wanted to charge $200 for the game. And this was 1996. So that's pretty pricey. Maybe you should write a brochure that explains the philosophy that people can read, and then they're willing to invest the money in the game. And that's when he asked me to be his partner. And that brochure that we wrote together was Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
That's Sharon Lecter. She worked at a top accounting firm, a real accountant. Imagine that, writing a book on accounting. And look, it says Robert, teacher, Sharon, businesswoman, a writer too. She published a woman's magazine and then became the publishing executive rock star that, those Talking Elmo books, the Elmo Sesame Street books. You can thank her for that. Advisor to Presidents Obama and Bush. She's obviously alpha. And look at her LinkedIn. It says Rich Dad, founder, not co-founder, and CEO. Robert wasn't the CEO. She ran the show and was responsible for the growth of the largest personal finance brand.
So I took him for 9 years to one level, got him prepped up, and he called me on the phone when he met Sharon, because she was going to be the one that took him to the next level.
And she's sharp. I saw a Grant Cardone interview. She treats finance gurus like toddlers.
They got some debt in college. Should they pay their debt right now? Should they pay their debt out first?
That depends. You're an accountant, that's our favorite response. It depends on their personal situation.
Robert's first book was repetitive, painfully slow.
Can you believe that? Sitting in front of Grant Cardone and just be like, come on, you know better.
Inconsistent, smelled a little commie, but this book, it's concise, has a clear voice, bestseller for over 25 years, and it smells like a CEO alpha wrote it.
Right. See, so the book that Kiyosaki actually wrote, nobody read it. It wasn't a bestseller, right? It's nonsense what this is. International bestseller. It actually didn't do very well. But the other one was a bestseller for 25 years.
And obviously no alpha woman calls her own dad poor. Robert Kiyosaki was willing. He had charisma. He's what other alpha female leaders might call a hungry dog. It wasn't possible without her. There's no way. And I think by removing her name, he loses all credibility.
Look at that. Right. So what is this trying to say? That there's a version out there that doesn't have Sharon on it? This is how much of a fraud it was.
Sharon also just happened to co-write 15 Rich Dad books. What a coincidence. And Sharon was the publisher for the first 1 million copies of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, selling them right out of her house. 1 million copies, that's unheard of. How did you pull it off?
You find somebody that's already in that geographic location, and they can take what you do and spread it in their world. It's win-win.
Lesson 1, the rich don't work for money, but she's too smart to say who was working for free. Who'd she exploit? Rumor has it that Amway promoted the book, made it a bestseller. To promote multi-level marketing, Amway paid $56 million after being accused of a pyramid scheme to exploit people. Rich Dad would say they exploit themselves. But other than this old video of Kiyosaki promoting MLMs, there's zero proof online that he became rich and famous off the back of this pyramid scheme. I found nothing, and I can find stuff. Unless, Robert, is there something you want to add in your old age?
Was the interview with Oprah, is that what kind of put it over the top?
That was one of them, but I was already on the bestseller list. So when I published Rich Dad, Poor Dad, nobody would buy the damn book. And I was very much against network marketing. You know, the pyramid scheme, all the things they say about it. So my friend told me to shape up and shut my mouth and go check them out. So when I checked out network marketing, I said, oh my God, they're doing what my rich dad told me to do, is learn how to sell. So in my little book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I put the asset is a network marketing, it's assets, liabilities. I said, you build a network marketing building, it's business, it's an asset. And guess who bought the first book? An Amway distributor.
That's why I love old people. They just don't care anymore. So the goal of a pyramid scheme, it's like what Rich Dad preached.
He tried so hard to rid himself of all receipts having to do with Amway pyramid schemes, just to go on Vlad TV years later and then openly admit it, you know? So there's a lot more to the story. I recommend that you guys look it up yourself. You go on YouTube, and it's specifically called Rich Dad Got Caught. And basically, it even goes into the real poor dad. And it turns out that poor dad was not poor, actually. You know, he actually did very decent for himself. He invested in things, and he actually left a lot to Robert. So, you know, it's not what people actually think it is. The whole facade of it was to help sell stuff, which also brings me to want to mention, right, that, you know, if you ever seen that little clip from The Boys, the first episode of it, where the a Fed agent comes in and he starts playing around with the nanny cam, and then he tells them, how do we sell a whole bunch of nanny cams, right? We put out a video of nannies shaking up the baby so that that fear drives into everybody that now we're going to. So a lot of stuff out there, you know, is a marketing ploy.
Goes to show you, doesn't it? Bollocks people won't believe if you get them scared enough.
So ultimately, if you're first getting into business and you want to understand the mindset, right? Rich Dad, Poor Dad is still a very fun read. It's still a very good story. But just know that behind it is just mostly marketing. There's still some genius because it's written by Sharon Lechter, actually, right? But the face of it is what Kiyosaki actually is. So, you know, for Benny Sen, if that's not enough proof for you why I would never be a follower of Robert Kiyosaki, if that's not enough evidence, then nothing is ever going to be. And I also want to mention that for those of you who follow the channel, I will be on Justin Resell's channel. He scheduled me for October 23rd for one of his Thursday live shows. So if you guys want to join that, and if you want to ask any questions on the spot or whatever, I will be there for that. Anyways, guys, hope you had fun. That was the video. If you learned something, please consider subscribing.